Right, this is Robert again, and we're back with part 2. We had some really interesting discussion going here with Christophe and Joe, and we're going to go ahead and finish up in this section, and it's back to you.
No, it's just the beginning.
Well, okay, so one of the things that Joe's talking about, how he actually was a French learner. He didn't grow up in a French environment, although his mother was former sort of Quebecoise, and he is a person who decided to learn the language. We've got to make that point. He decided to learn the language, decided to do it more or less as an adult, more or less, and he was highly motivated. But the one thing he did do, he wasn't a hobby learner. He wasn't some sort of dilettante who just played with the language at tourist things. He went and he lived in Paris to begin with, or he'd been in France, and he worked in Africa, in French-speaking Africa. And but the point is that it was, as he was telling us, where he really started learning French was with the family. So if we can pick it up there, like
the family,
like the 18-year-old girl was probably a big help, right? I mean, as far as she was obviously giving you all the slang, and
she was a bit of a bitch, actually. But we eventually, yeah. Well, we went through, like, I became part of the family. Okay, I lived there for 2 years. Now, it was the lady of the house that I really hit it off with. You know, she was the one who wanted me to stay. And
she was a real teacher.
She was a French teacher in the French public school system. So we were, you know, and I was highly motivated.
You were the project, huh?
I was, well, yeah, I was kind of a project, I guess. You know, but I was very, very, very keen to learn French. My motivation was very high. And actually, that reminds me, I want to tell you something. A very formative experience I had learning French. When I was 21, okay, and I went for my first really serious French learning experience in Vichy for the summer that I studied French full time. Now at that point, when I started, my French was almost non-existent, okay? But I was totally motivated, and within a couple of weeks, I was reading on my own, you know, Asterix and Obelix comic books. You guys know Asterix and Obelix comic books?
He hasn't really gone from there.
Well,
this... No Voltaire, no Rousseau, no...
I began with Asterix and all kinds of other French comics. Now, I read these things so much, and I read them in French because I had access to the complete collection at the library, and I also had access to the complete translations. So I studied these things.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is, I have ever since then
I have retained, phrases, right?
I've retained this association in my mind between French and that which is comic and funny, okay? So to this day, when I hear French or when I read French, my first impression is this is a comic language, because I think of Asterix and all the comics I read.
I think that goes over well with the, you know, the revolution that
well,
they had, Descartes.
I don't run around, you know,
you know, Voltaire.
Telling
again.
French people, hey, your language is the most naturally comical one on the planet. It makes me laugh every time I hear it. But that is the fact. That's, to this day, when I hear French, there's something in the back of my mind that thinks there's something funny about this language.
Actually, this is bizarre, but living here in Thailand, there are quite a few French speakers, and you can use it. I've used it with tourists here. I've had to explain directions and things like that. So even though we're in the jungle, this is not the former areas like Cambodia and Vietnam and Laos. That was, you know, former Indochine. That this is not. This was never part of that. But still, there are more opportunities here to speak French, which is bizarre, than there would be living in Iowa or in central United States, Nebraska, anywhere. Well, tourists for one thing, because we live in a big tourist area. But anyway, so what I want to get with that tourist thing is, so you basically, because of their telling you, I know, ripped out all the Quebecois things, though, didn't you?
Oh yeah, okay. Well, because shortly after
you got abused enough, but when you were speaking with that, it's a nasal. Franchement, it's irritating, really. Some girls, Quebecois girls are some of the most beautiful girls on the planet, believe me. But when you start hearing that, you know, franchement and stuff like that, it's all you can do. You know, it's all you can do to be around it.
Yeah, you want to say, please don't talk like that.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, it's sort of like, I guess, like some people would find like a Bronx accent on a girl, or the New Jersey accent in, you know, English in the United States. It's just
It's Birmingham.
Yeah, it's not a prestige thing. So
No.
you had to switch, right? And this is something
Well,
I
I
want to
didn't
make.
even know I was doing it.
Well,
you know,
but
like,
this is one of the things. But you would have been better off in France trying to imitate more or less le Parisien, yeah?
apparently this happens to Canadians all the time. Like Canadian French Canadians who go live in France,
They're
they get their
discriminated, right?
they get their accent drilled out of them. They basically get it forced out of them. I heard that as much from a French Canadian woman. There's a truck going by. I was hitchhiking once in France, and I got a ride from a woman who turned out to be a French Canadian woman living in France, and she'd been there for a number of years. So we got to talking about this and that, and she said, "Oh, you have to change your accent when you move here." She just said that outright. She said, "You have to change your accent. You can't live here and maintain my former Quebecois accent."
Yeah.
I had to just change to the way they talk here, and that's all there is to it. So the day came shortly after I'd started living with this family when one day the daughter Irene said to me, "Oh, arrête avec ton accent canadien de merde," and she was like really, getting really
Serious.
shirty about
Yeah.
it. So from that day on, I started to pay attention to what I was saying, and I switched.
Yeah, it changed. Well, okay, so just to give people who are listening for actual guidelines, they
Go
wanna-
live with a family.
Yeah, okay, they want to benefit from
Yeah,
it.
go live with a family.
They want to benefit from your time and energy and experience. Okay, what would you say is important? Okay, yeah, living with the family, right? But also having functional, right? You have to be functional in the
Oh
language.
yeah,
because I
the
mean,
family didn't speak English.
well, okay, and
know?
so everything you did, you had to like. Obviously, I'm gonna check this out. People know me. Did you have to know the word for shoelaces? Did you learn the word for shoelaces?
What is it? Laissez? I can't remember. But no, I did. I don't think I did.
No.
No, I probably would have said, something like, "J'ai besoin encore de remplacer ces choses-là sur mes chaussures," right? And
Okay,
they would
well,
laugh.
That's a way around it.
Yeah, I
But-
would get around. Like I didn't. Let me say this. I lived there for 2 years, and I lived with this family for 2 years, and I worked hard on my French. But come on, French is a hard language. I didn't
but
achieve
it's-
native-like proficiency. Okay, like
No, no,
my French is
so
not
you-
perfect.
So you didn't become a native in 6 months, using somebody's special techniques, huh?
No. Listen, learning a language, I mean, it takes years. It takes years and years of practice and study if you want to be really, really serious about it.
Yeah.
Some people are better at it than others. I suppose I was kind of, just moderately gifted language learner. I had to work at it. And French, I mean, for God's sakes, there's so much to learn. How many vocabulary words are there in an average native speaker's first language person's head?
And that's something-
Hundreds of thousands.
That's something we were just talking about earlier, Christophe. Just you were mentioning, people don't think of all the hours and just years of time they spend putting into their native language to
Right.
get to where they have a level of fluency.
Yeah.
And okay, so and I want to point out too, because this is here's something to take away from this, is actually reading a dictionary as a pastime is actually beneficial. I've done it. I used to do things too. Did you ever do this? Like you hear a song, let's say in English, and you would
Look up everything.
No, in English, and interpret it into French. And switch
okay.
it into French.
I did.
I
like
used to
that,
do that.
we all had our.
I used to do that sort of thing, and try to do it like that,
Right.
Like right in the moment, right? And so you have to be sincere about it. You're gonna have to put out a lot of time. Hey, did you end up thinking in French? Did you? Did you switch
for
to
sure.
French?
Yeah, I thought in French a lot. I know I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would catch myself thinking in French when it was, say, it was necessary to speak English for suddenly, and I would have to switch back into English quickly. No, by the a year and a half after I was there, I was really, really, really functioning in French. Oh, and I had a French girlfriend too, and she spoke English because she was kind of like me. She was really passionate and motivated about English. But after we started going out, I said, okay, how about we'll speak English one day and French next, and you can teach me French. And she said, she was a bit of a bitch too. She said, I'm not your English teacher. Right? You want an English teacher? Find somebody else.
I'm not going to censor that. I'll just
Not
let
your
everybody
French
know
teacher, right?
I'm putting this up raw. I won't be censoring this.
Yeah, well, it's not bad. There's a lot worse things.
Joe does not represent the views or of Multilingual Times and Polyglot News. We're just putting up the news as we get it.
Yeah.
Okay, she was...
He's not extreme enough. He's not extreme enough.
Let me tell you about my French girlfriend. She was a stripper. Okay, now... I didn't know that when we started going out. I said, oh, so what do you do? She said, oh, I work in a pizza place. I said, oh, I'll come and buy a pizza from you sometime. She said, oh, no, I don't like people seeing me there. It's embarrassing. I hate working at a pizza place. So, eventually I found out she was a stripper.
Yeah.
I went through all her stuff one day.
you see like, Frank, no? A lot of, anyway.
I went through all her personal papers and I found these paychecks from like somewhere on the Rue Saint Denis,
We're not here at Multilingual Times Polyglot News. We're not suggesting you rifle through your girlfriend or boyfriend's stuff. It just worked for Joe. That's all we can say.
I think one of the things I think we probably want to deal with is this idea that by actually living in the country and actually having to function in the country, you learned a lot of the things that's how you learn, by actually needing to communicate with other people, not by. That's how you really learn the language, not by sitting. I mean, you can practice certain things by yourself, but to really learn it, the language, you have to get out there and use it with other human beings. This autodidactic approach will only get you so far.
Right.
I think that's one of the key points we wanted to focus on.
It's
here.
artificial to think that you're going to self-learn a language. No one has ever self-learned a language because you didn't sit in a room by yourself and suddenly spontaneously come up with a language. That didn't happen. It's a long thing that we could do other videos about, because that goes into language acquisition and the actual studies and the research and evidence, not somebody's idea they thought up late at night. There's actually, no one's ever been a self-learner, and the reason for language is to communicate with someone else and get certain tasks done. Of course, certain cultures, as we were talking about, we'll probably talk about other things, are more superficial than others. Like, not saying it's Thailand, yes I am, that only cares about eating and making money. There's no talk of philosophy, there's no talk in Thai of architecture, art. You can see that in the literature, but that's for something else. But what I think we can say here is that Joe's got a lot of interesting stories, and so you've seen part one, you've seen part two. If you want more from Joe, just let us know, write comments, send emails, let us know, and we'll do another interview with Joe, because he's got plenty of stories for everybody. And so I just want to say this is Christophe Clugston, the Gonzo reporter for Multilingual Times, Polyglot News, and Editor-in-Chief Robert behind the camera. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Christophe, and thank you, Joe.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I take off my glasses to you both.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
See you again soon. Bye.